Good morning, everybody. The time is now 8 o'clock. Actually, I think it's 8:01 at this point in time. Still 8 o'clock. Welcome to the Finance Committee for Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. Can I get a roll call, please?
Member Cahill, Member Childress, Member Covert.
Here.
Member Desart.
Here.
Member Eckhoff.
Here.
Member Evans. Member Galassi.
Here.
Member Garcia.
Here.
Member Heather. Member Honig. Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Martinez. Member Ozag. Member Schwarzy. Member Tornatori. Member Yu.
Here.
Member Zay.
Member Honig just walked in. A quorum of the members is physically present. I will entertain a motion to permit those members not physically present due to personal illness or disability, employment purposes, or the business of the board, family, or other emergency, or unexpected child care obligations to participate by video teleconference. I have a motion by Member Heather, second by Member Childress. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome, Member Desart. Okay. Moving on, do we have any public comment for today? Okay. Chairwoman's remarks. I'm going to hold off on any remarks because we've got a busy meeting today. So we're going to move on to approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for 25-2347 Finance Committee for regular meeting Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025? We got a motion by Member Zay, second by Member Heather. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to budget transfers. May I get a motion to approve 25-2483 transfer of funds from other professional services to software in the amount of $13,105 to cover the cost of invoice for Dayforce implementation and parallel go live services for human resource. Got a motion by Member Yu, second by Member Heather, or a second. Okay, motion by Member Heather, second by Member Yu. Okay. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. May I get a motion to approve 25-2484 budget transfers 10/14/2025 various companies and accounting units? Motion by Member Evans, second by Member Ozog. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to procurement requisitions, and I hand it over to Vice Chair Cahill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for approval on 25-3111. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Wex Health, Inc. for flexible spending account services for the period January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2026 for human resources for a contract total not to exceed $20,500.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to development and Member Tornatori.
Morning, Madam Chair. I move approval of DCP 2-25, a recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Safe Build Illinois LLC for professional services to perform building and plumbing plan reviews and inspections on an as-needed basis in unincorporated DuPage County for the period of December 1, 2025 through November 30th, 2026 for the Building and Zoning Department, and for a contract total amount not to exceed $75,000 per RFP 24-6-BZP, the second of three optional renewals.
I had a motion by Member Tornatori, second by Member Covert. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to environmental and Member Heather.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I move for the approval of EN-B-1-25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract to Good Marketing, Inc. to provide marketing services in support of the Chicagoland Recycling Education Marketing Campaign for the Environmental Division of Facilities Management for the period of October 14th, 2025 through June 1st, 2027 for a total contract amount not to exceed $60,000 per RFP 25-88-FN.
Motion by Member Heather. Any second by Member Evans. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to ETSB, and in lieu of Member Schwarze's absence, I think Member Eckhoff is going to be reading this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd move approval of ETSR 0053-25, resolution approving the sale of inventory from the County of DuPage on behalf of the Emergency Telephone System Board of DuPage County to the Vermillion Livingston County Consortium for an amount of $125,400.
Got a motion by Member Eckhoff, second by Member Cooper. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Member Eckhoff. Moving on to Human Services, and now I'm going to hand it over to Vice Chair Cahill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for approval on HSCO 1-25, amendment to County Contract 7271 Serve issued to DuPage Federation on Human Services Reform Language Access Resource Center for Interpretation, Translation, and American Sign Language Services, an increase of $8,500 for a contract total not to exceed $38,499.
So we've got a motion by Member Galassi, second by Member Childress, and a question by Member Cooper.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question. Is this for sign language services only, or is it for multiple language interpretations, and how many languages? Is it possible that we could get a list of those languages available?
Mary Keaton, are you online? Now we've got Valerie for procurement here.
Okay, perfect. It is for multiple languages. I can get the languages for you. I believe there was over 13 languages for this company. And the first question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to see, like, I wanted to know the list of languages of 13, which languages there are.
I can definitely get that to you before board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Valerie. Any other questions on this item? Thank you, Valerie. All in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on HSP 46-25, recommendation for the approval of a purchase order issued to Well Sky Corporation for the annual renewal of the Homeless Management Information System Software and Cloud Services Contract, renewal of licenses, training, support, and custom programming for community services for the period November 1st, 2025 through October 31st, 2026 for a contract not to exceed $64,028.90.
We got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, a second by Member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on HSP 47-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order issued to Pulmonary Exchange LTD for the rental of respiratory care equipment for the DuPage Care Center for the period November 20th, 2025 through November 19th, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $35,000 per lowest bid.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Yu. Any discussion on this item? Then all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on HSP 48-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to HD Supply, Inc. to provide housekeeping and cleaning chemicals as needed for the DuPage Care Center for the period November 1st, 2025 through October 31st, 2028 for a contract amount not to exceed $189,000, contract pursuant to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Act.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Galassi. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on HSP 49-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Point Click Care Technologies for software maintenance for the DuPage Care Center for the period of December 1st, 2025 through November 30th, 2026 for a total contract amount not to exceed $302,734.83, not suitable for competitive bid.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on HSR 1725, approval of issuance of payments to DuPage County to energy assistant providers through the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program Grant Program Year 25 Intergovernmental Agreement in the amount of $484,140.
Motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Vice Chair Cahill. Moving on to Judicial and Public Safety and Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on JPSP 39 25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Waters for the purchase of a Waters Radian ASAP system for the Sheriff's Office for the period of October 15th, 2025 through October 14th, 2026 for a contract total amount not to exceed $186.99. This is exempt from bidding and it's not suitable for competitive bids.
Got a motion by Member Evans, second by Member Glossi. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on JPSP 40 25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Public Safety Direct, Inc. for upfitting, repairs, and monthly maintenance of sheriff's office vehicles for the period of October 31st, 2025 through October 30th, 2026 for a contract total amount not to exceed $522,215.
Got a motion by Member Evans, second by Member Zay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on JPSP 41 25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to B&H Photo Video for the purchase of IT equipment and supplies for the Sheriff's Office for the period of October 21st, 2025 through November 30th, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $72,458.90.
Motion by Member Evans, second by Member Zay. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on JPSP 42 25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to CDWG for the purchase of IT equipment and supplies for the Sheriff's Office for the period of October 27th, 2025 through November 30th, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $43,579.74.
Motion by Member Evans, second by Member Galassi. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on JPSP 43 25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Henriksen for the purchase of office furniture and supplies for the Sheriff's Office for the period of October 14th, 2025 through October 13th, 2026 for contract total not to exceed $57,574.54.
Got a motion by Member Evans, second by Member Zay. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move on JPSP 44 25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Curry Motors Fleet for the purchase of two 2025 Ford Interceptors for the Sheriff's Office for the period of October 15th, 2025 through October 14th, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $90,690.
Got a motion by Member Evans, second by Member Zay. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, I'd move on JPSP 45 25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Berger Chevrolet for the purchase of three 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 crew cab for the Sheriff's Office for the period of October 15th, 2025 through October 14th, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $151,782.
Got a motion by Member Evans, second by Member Zay. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Member Evans. Moving on to Public Works and Member Childers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on FMP 4925, the recommendation for the approval of a contract issued to HD Supply to furnish, deliver housekeeping supplies and chemical cleaning as needed for the county campus for facilities management for the period of November 1, 2025 through June 30, 2027 for a total contract amount not to exceed $50,000.
Got a motion by Member Childers, second by Member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on FMP 5025 on the recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Commonwealth Edison Company for electric utility services for non-connected county facilities and facility management for a period of November 1, 2025 through October 31, 2029, for a total contract amount not to exceed $60,000.
Got a motion by member Childress, second by member Zay. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move on FMR 1025 on the recommendation for the approval of an agreement between County of DuPage, Illinois, and CASA of DuPage County, Inc. for lease space of the judicial office facility for facilities management for a 10-year period of November 1, 2025 through October 31, 2035 for an annual amount not to exceed $1.
We got a motion by member Childress, a second by member Heather. Any discussion on this item? Member Covert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question. So it says that not to exceed $1, so it's essentially for free, which is great. But how is this being paid for? I mean, wouldn't we benefit more if we did get some funding here?
Anybody? I mean, we have a lot of intergovernmental
mean,
agreements with.
To pay
groups,
some
but
rent?
I'm gonna have Nick come up and answer that.
Both 7G3 as well as 7G4. Absolutely. You could charge more, but historically it's always been $1 because of the service that they provide.
Okay.
I know that they work very, very closely with the chief judge as well as the entire court system. And the thought process is, I mean, they're nonprofits. That's why it's so that's purely a decision by
Yeah.
the board. If you want to charge.
No,
this
I was just
individually,
curious. I was just curious, so.
You absolutely.
It's always been $1. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Okay, thank you. They do wonderful work. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Thank you for the question. Yeah, Nat, you're right. They absolutely do wonderful work. Member Desart?
Nothing at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, sorry, we were told you had a question. Okay. Any other discussions on this item? Okay, all in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And finally, I'd like to move on FMR 1125 on the recommendation for the approval of an agreement between County of DuPage, Illinois, and Family Shelter Services for the lease space at judicial office facilities for facilities management for a 10-year period of November 1, 2025 through October 31, 2035 for an annual amount not to exceed $1.
We've got a motion by member Childers, a second by member Yu. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, member Childers. Moving on to stormwater and member Zay.
Morning, Madam Chair. Move on 25-2299 SMP 21A-24 amendment to resolution SMP 2124 issued to Copenhagen Construction for the St. Joseph's Creek Condominium Drainage Improvement Project, Building C, for stormwater management. Increase the contract total amount by $59,300, resulting in an amended contract not to exceed $1,779,715.
And a motion by member Zay, second by member Heather. I do have one comment. I've been involved with St. Joseph Creek Condom Association since 2013. So I'm very much in favor of this increase because they really need to get their equipment and their cars and everything protected from stormwater events. So thank you for doing this. And that's just my comment on that. So I'm glad to see it's finally gonna be completed. It's been a few years. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on 25-2312 SMP 22A-24 amendment to resolution SMP 2224 issued to Copenhagen Construction for the St. Joseph's Creek Condominium Drainage Improvement Project, Buildings A and B for stormwater management to increase the contract amount by $70,100, resulting in an amended contract not to exceed $2,105,971.
Motion by members A. Second by member U. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, members A. Moving on to technology and member Covert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to combine 7I1 through 7I4.
Motion to combine 7I1 through 7I4, and there's a second by Vice Chair Cahill. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those are combined.
Thank you. I move on TEP 0014-25. A recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Tyler Technologies, Inc. for annual maintenance and support of the Tyler Enterprise Assessment and Tax System, Identity Workforce Advanced and Cashiering for the Tyler IaaS World Software for Information Technology for the period of January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2026 for a contract total amount of $1,033,770. I moved on TEP 001-5-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Learning Tree International USA, Inc. for the procurement of 15 educational training vouchers, which do not expire for information technology for the period of October 15, 2025 through October 14, 2026 for a contract total amount of $31,410, contract pursuant to the Governmental Joint Purchasing Act. I move on TEP 0016-25. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Granicus LLC for an annual subscription to the Gov Delivery software platform used by the county board to send out the county's e-newsletters paid for by information technology for the period of October 26, 2025 to November 30th, 2026 for information technology for a contract total amount of $36,081.49, contract pursuant to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Act. And finally, I move on TEP 0017-25, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Insight Public Sector for the purchase of laptops, desktops, monitors, and docking stations for the period of October 15, 2025 through November 30th, 2025 for a contract total amount not to exceed $337,369, contract pursuant to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Act.
Got a motion by member Covert, a second by member U. Is there any discussion on any of these items? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, member Covert. Moving on to transportation and member Ozak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for approval of 252343, request for approval of payment for the annual membership fee to Julie Inc. per resolution DTR 0679-16 approved by the county board on November 22nd, 2016 for locating services for the Division of Transportation from January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2026 for an estimated county cost of $18,000.
A motion by member Ozak, second by member Tornatori, sorry. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval of item 252344, amendment to resolution DTR 1325 issued to SKC Construction Incorporated for the 2025 pavement preservation crack sealing program to increase the funding in the amount of $6,827.12, resulting in an amended contract total amount of $36,827.12.
Got a motion by member Ozak, second by member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval of item DTP 4725, recommendation for the approval of a contract to K-Tech Specialty Coatings Incorporated to furnish and deliver de-icing liquids as needed for the Division of Transportation for the period of November 1st, 2025 through October 31st, 2026 for a contract total not to exceed $120,000, not suitable for competitive bids, sole source, sole authorized distributor.
A motion by member Ozak, a second by member Evans. Any discussion on these items? All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval of DTP 4825, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Genuine Parts Company doing business as Napa Auto Parts to furnish and install 4 light-duty vehicle lifts for the Division of Transportation for the period of October 14th, 2025 through October 13th, 2026, for a contract total not to exceed $144,750. Contract pursuant to Intergovernmental Cooperation Act.
Okay, motion by member Ozark, second member Zay. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, member Ozark.
Thank you.
Moving on to finance resolutions and giving it back to Vice Chair Cahill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for approval on FIR 144-25, acceptance of an extension of time for the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency Non-Point Source Pollution Control Financial Assistance Program, Intergovernmental Agreement Number 319-2207.
Second by member Galassi. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for approval on FIR 0159-25, acceptance of an extension of time for the Illinois Court Commission on Access to Justice Grant Program Year 24, Company 5000 for the Law Library.
We got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on FIR 0153-25, acceptance of an extension of time for the Illinois Court Commission on Access to Justice Grant Program Year 25.
Motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by member Galassi. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on FIR 0155-25, acceptance and appropriation of the Aging Case Coordination Unit Fund Program Year 26 for Senior Services, Company 5000, in the amount of $8,130,284 for community services.
Motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by member Galassi. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on FIR 0156-25, acceptance and appropriation of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus Powering Safe Communities Grant, Program Year 25, Power 25, in the amount of $10,000 for facilities management.
I got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by member Galassi. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on FIR 0160-25, acceptance and appropriation of the Help America Vote Act Polling Place Accessibility Grant, Program Year 26, in the amount of $3,686 for the County Clerk Election Division.
Motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by member Zay. And you've got a question, member Zay?
I do. Reading this grant, I know it's additional, but I wonder if somebody can answer this. This is coming from the State Board of Elections. Are they getting it from, also they getting that money passed through from the federal government? Which bothers me is that it says in the agreement, by accepting this grant, the election authority agrees to document all expenditures for audit purposes in accordance with general accepted auditing standards, federal single audit requirements, and specific additional provisions contained in HAVA and uniform guidance. Funds may not be reimbursed otherwise. So are we doing this auditing process on this? Do we know? And are these funds coming from, at some point, the federal government?
Is there someone from the clerk's office online? I don't see anyone here in the audience, right? Okay. It does not sound like there is.
Well, I kind of know.
I know. Let me see if we can get an answer for you or between meetings from the clerk's office.
Because if we're not following county rules, we're not following state bidding rules, are we not following also federal election law on this and their process?
Okay. I think Vice Chair Cahill says she could probably give you an answer.
I just wanted to add some light on this. So this is an example of how the county clerk's office receives grants. And when our audit team of Baker Tilly comes in, they do a single audit act. They look at all the grant monies received and they make sure that we are in compliance with the specifications in order to receive those grants. And that was part of the management letter comment issued by Baker Tilly that this is a very risky area of exposure for the county because we are receiving monies that we must comply with certain standards in order to receive and accept those monies. And in many cases, we are not. So this is something that we need to look at going forward. And this actually puts at risk receiving those monies in the future if we don't comply with what they expect.
Member Eckhoff?
I don't understand exactly what you just said. Do they have to comply with the accounting procedures before they receive it? Or do they have to comply with it after they receive it? And if they don't, then they have to give it back?
I think we'd have to ask our outside auditor, but I believe it's after you receive the money, you have to comply with certain specifications with that grant. And that's part of the audit that the outside auditors do. The Single Audit Act is added on to our regular financial audit. But I don't want to speak on behalf of the outside auditor. I just know that his management letter comment said that grant monies are at risk if we do not comply with what the grant expects the county to do.
So then if the county, or if the office doesn't comply with the accounting, we have to give it back to the federal government out of general pros funds, because they probably will already spent it.
I don't know if we can answer that. We really don't know if we can answer that until we talk to the auditing company. And also, I believe the clerk's office would probably have to answer some of those questions. So we'll try to get some answers for you. Member Ozog?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Member Cahill, could you expand on that a little bit? You said that grants are not being reported properly. Are you referring to countywide or specifically to this Vote America Elections Division Act?
Part of the audit is called a Single Audit Act, where the auditors come in, the outside auditors we hire, and they have to review the grant monies that we receive and make sure that we are in compliance with the terms of those grants.
All grant monies.
All grant monies.
Okay.
But the issue that if you look to the management letter comment, he wrote in there that certain grant monies may not have the proper documentation. And this puts those grant monies at risk. And I believe he was referring to, he didn't specifically say the clerk's department.
Gotcha.
But that is what he was referring to.
Okay, thank you.
Member Zay?
Yeah, just a follow up. You know, this is state pass-through money. This is federal money that's coming through the State Board of Elections. So, I mean, I'm looking at possibly, I know this is a small increase, but the original amount was for over $3 million. Maybe we should table this until we get more information, at least from the State Board of Elections. And honestly, I don't know why we don't contact the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Chicago to see if we're violating also federal election laws on this before we get ourselves sign an additional agreement on this. I mean, this is federal pass-through election money that has certain standards they have to be meet, and we have no idea if they're being met or not by our clerk.
Can I ask our finance department if there is an issue with perhaps holding off on a vote on this, if that would delay anything? No? Okay.
No. Well, then I make a motion to table this for 2 weeks until we get additional information.
We can bring it back in 2 weeks or get some additional information in the meantime.
Okay.
Or try. to
Thank
get
you
some
so
additional-
much. Okay.
I don't have the answers to that, specifically as it pertains to elections. I know that our grant team in the finance department monitors and accounts for all the state and federal grants. If we do the single audit that Member Cahill was talking about, I have to figure out through this grant what the flow of the money is. I believe it will come in to the county and through the treasurer's office. Then our grant team in finance accounts for that, and they'll have all the documentation. The expenses that are correlated with the grant, that's handled through the clerk's office. But there still is reporting that needs to be done to to make sure that those expenses are in compliance with the grant
Right, 'cause I
agreement.
was hoping in the next 2 weeks, we could figure out if we're gonna get a bill for $3 million because we didn't comply. Can we figure that out in the next 2 weeks?
I'll have our grant manager look into it and we'll get some additional information.
Thank you.
Because it does say funds may not be reimbursed otherwise if they're not given the proper documentation.
Yeah, there seems to be some questions we need to have answered. So Member Galassi has a question and then we'll take up your motion.
Thank you. When you come back in 2 weeks, I think you've answered this, but could you just give us the exact number that the county could have exposure to if the grant agreements aren't complied with?
Specifically to the clerk
Yeah.
elections, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see what's outstanding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Member Desart has a question also.
Yeah, just to comment, I didn't hear a motion and a second on the delay.
Oh, I made the motion.
Member Zay,
It wasn't specifically a motion, Member Zay.
It was.
So now you're saying you're making a motion and Member Eckhoff is making a second. Just clarification.
I specifically, I have people nodding at me. I specifically made the motion to table for 2 weeks to get additional information.
Okay, and that was seconded by Member Ozog. Member Eckhoff, I'm sorry, I'm looking right at you, but
We look the same.
Can we get a roll call on this? Just see what.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, Member Cahill. Member Childress. Member Covert.
Aye.
Member Desart.
No.
Member Eckhoff.
Yes.
Member Evans. Member Galassi.
Aye.
Member Garcia.
Aye.
Member Heather. Member Honig.
Yes.
Member Krajewski. Member LaPlante. Member Martinez.
Aye.
Member Ozag.
Aye.
Member Schwarzy. Member Tornatori. Member Yu.
No.
And Member Zay.
Aye.
Okay, so that is, so we've got unanimous. We're going to be holding off on this vote for 2 weeks and then we'll come back with more information. Hopefully, maybe we can kind of contact the auditor, perhaps maybe, get some information from the auditor and then from perhaps the clerk's department and also from our finance department. So we'll hopefully have more information at the next finance board. Okay. So we will take that off right now for 2 weeks. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next item.
Okay, I move for approval on FIR 0161-25, acceptance and appropriation of the IACAA Employment Barrier Reduction Pilot Program, Program Year 26, in the amount of $40,250 community services.
Okay, we've got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Galassi. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on FIR 0157-25, acceptance of modification of funding allocation for the Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program, Income Eligible Retrofits Program Grant, Program Year 25, for a total amount not to exceed $171,394 community services.
Motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Heather. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on FIR 0158-25, appropriation of additional funding for the LIHEAP Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, Grant Program Year 25, intergovernmental agreement from $3,487,312 to $4,050,265, an increase of $562,953 community services.
We've got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Galassi. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move for approval on FIR 0163-25, renewal of group insurance program for human resources.
We got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by both of you. Member Galassi. Can find it out. Member Galassi, any discussion on this item? We had a big discussion about this at our last finance committee. Member Ozog.
I just want to add a comment. This past week or so, I read that the pharmaceutical companies are planning on reducing pricing for the GLP-1 medications. And there will be programs available and it will go down to around, I want to say $400 or $500 a month versus $1,200 or $1,300 a month. So there is some relief for those who are not being treated under type 2 diabetes. So I just want to throw that.
I know,
out
and
there.
I don't think our human resources department will be getting information out to all of our
Yeah.
employees about, why, if it's still covered, if it's not, and I think we still have, is it 6 months we're waiting out on that? 6 months, till that's gonna be changed, so. Okay, any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. I move to receive and place on file informational, which is payment of claims, wire transfers, appointments, and grant proposal notifications.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Cahill, second by Member Evans. The only discussion I have on this, I'm hoping, and I hate to give more work to Evan, is I'm hoping to get a list of all the member initiative programs that we've helped somebody down the line when these are all done. So, I think there's been a lot of good work done through that program, and I think we want to make sure that we let everybody know. Sorry, Evan. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to our discussion, and I'm going to hand it over to our Recorder Chaplain.
There we go.
Got it.
See, I forget. So thank you, Madam Chair and committee members for having us. I did want to mention that we did try to meet with Chair Garcia and Vice Chair Cahill and Nick before this meeting to discuss some of this, but they said since the budget is now in the committee's hands, it would be better for us to come here. So we're doing that, and we're very happy to be here. And I'm going to make a public announcement first. On our badges, about a month ago, I ran into a veteran in the hallway. And he was asking if there was a way to connect veterans at the county together. He said if I could, knew somebody was a veteran, I might go up to them and talk. So he talked about having our badge indicate whether they're a veteran or not. So Roger Gertz downstairs, he just last week was able to add the veteran seal. So if they were in the Navy or Army or whatever service they were in, they can add those to the badges for just employees, not contractors, not anybody else. So we just wanted to mention that since it just happened last week. So that's for the veterans here. But on with our presentation. So as long as I can remember, the DuPage County Recorder's Office has paid its own way. Through recording fees, this office has generated enough revenue to operate without relying on a single taxpayer dollar. That is something that speaks to the efficiency and the responsibility of this office. I'm going to go in and talk about the fees a little bit. So as the real estate industry evolved, recorders' offices needed to shift computerized and digitized systems that make documents available online. To provide this service, the counties were authorized to create a document storage fee and a GIS fee. These fees were never meant to replace basic operation. The purpose of these fees was to provide the said services, computerize and digitize documents and make them available to the public. Now we're going on to a new little story here. At some point in Illinois history, a county must have refused to provide paper and recording books to a separately elected recorder, which is why ILCS 5/3-5033 exists. To ensure that the services the taxpayers pay for is provided and that the formality of a line item in a budget does not prevent the recorder from getting their job done. The law is very clear. The county must provide this office the supplies needed to perform its duties, funded by the recording fee, not the document storage fee, not the GIS fee, the recording fee. And as I stated earlier, this office operates on those revenues. So there's no real need to cut our operations budget on a budget that is self-funded. So can we go to the next slide with the recording fee with the auditors? So you can see this year, our recording fee, we've collected 1.8+ million. We projected 1.85+ million. So we are generating the revenue to support our office solely. We're not asking for anything more than what our office brings in to run our office. So what concerns me about this proposed budget is that it moves our office's allocation to the dock storage, our office's operating allocation to the dock storage and GIS fees, while redirecting revenue that we generate to the general fund. And that's a reallocation of self-funded dollars meant for public record services being diverted into unrelated areas of government. This office is efficient, follows the law, and is fiscally sound. The challenge we face are not around from my or my office's mismanagement. The challenges we face being discussed here with our budget stem from a budgetary decision that diverts recording fee revenue away from its intended purpose. When that happens, it creates the appearance of a shortfall where none truly exists. A manufacturer crisis, not a fiscal one. I can fund all of our employees and all of the operations with that $26 recording fee, and you're still going to have surplus that's going to the general fund. So what I'm here to do today is I'm here to invite you to work with me to take a second look at the budget numbers, read the statutes, and work with us over the next month and a half to build a budget that is both fiscally sound and consistent with the intent of the law. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, I'm going to start out the comments and then I'm going to hand it over to the board. Thank you very much, Reporter Chaplin. I appreciate it. If you guys want to have a seat, go ahead. And if there's any questions or if you want to stand up here, it's up to you. But I really appreciate you being here. You know, we're always grateful when our elected officials come and talk to us. I have to say that off the bat. But the county does pride itself on fiscal responsibility. I know when I joined the board, we had funds from CARES Act and ARPA that allowed us to tackle much needed capital projects while taking care of some of the largest issues facing our county. Buying food to assist food pantries, creating our affordable housing program, building the crisis recovery center to help those going through mental health crisis, and helping businesses that feared they might have to close their doors during the height of the pandemic. We have been financially responsible and have accomplished a lot of good together. But as those funds diminished, we knew 2026, I was told actually, that it would be a very year of tough choices, and it has been. We knew it would be a lean budget year even before the news of the proposed federal budget cuts came and the shutdown happened. Several unknowns remain right now for the county. Funding for community services and WorkNet DuPage programs. And staff are rumored to be on the chopping block in Washington. The need for fresh food increases by the day. The cost of housing and groceries are sky high. The federal government and ICE is causing daily havoc, and it's increasing anxiety and the need for adequate mental health resources. So we as a board have a duty to ensure all statutory responsibilities and obligations of each department are being met. I would like to remind this committee that departments and elected officials have submitted budgets requests that came in $34 million higher than our anticipated revenue for next year. And hard choices had to be made, and every department and elected official is sharing in that pain, unfortunately. If it is with the will of this committee to increase the funding of a particular office, I would ask you to remember that every year the county board approves financial policies ahead of our budget process. We state very clearly in those policies, the county shall prepare a budget consistent with the general policies and goals of the county, which include a balanced general fund. The fiscal year 2025 fund balance currently projects a surplus of somewhere between 25 million and 30 million. The county has used surplus funds to pay for one-time capital needs and programs according to best budgeting practices. Using unassigned fund balance to fund ongoing operations, including salaries, benefits, and other operating costs, such as commodities and contractual services that reoccur every fiscal year, is not acceptable budgeting practices. Using these funds for operations would put the county in the position of structural deficit. If we increase an office's funding, we need to ensure there is a corresponding decrease to another line in order to ensure we maintain a balanced budget. Simply put, if we raise one office's budget, we need to cut another. just so we're clear. In my opinion, Chair Conroy introduced a fair budget that appropriately funds our departments and elected officials' offices while not increasing the burden on our taxpayers. Adding expenses to the budget will only make it harder to balance the budget in future years. I'm now going to open the floor for discussion or comments from the members of the board. Please note the recorder's presentation, which is today, and board comments will all be taken into consideration before any final vote is taken on the budget.
Could I make a comment real quick about, I'm glad you brought up the surplus and how you use that. You use that for operations because we know it's not a sustainable source of revenue.
Right.
Well, by shifting my recording fee dollars, but taking my operations and putting it into our doc storage and GIS, those are fee-based revenues. Those are not a reliable source either. So I would ask, we don't use our surplus for operations, and we shouldn't use the doc storage or the GIS for operations either. We did an analysis. If we continue on this way, our doc storage fee is going to be empty by 2029. So just something to keep in mind. But now if you guys want to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Cahill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first comment is that we have to look as a county board, we have to look at all departments, not just the recorder's office. And yes, you do bring funds into the county, but it's not just about your office. It's about supporting the sheriff's office. It's about supporting the state's attorney's office. It's about supporting the community services. It's about everything. We cannot just look at, oh, you have a surplus, so you can use the money for doc storage or for all your activities. No, that money has to be moved over for a balanced budget for the county to support all our activities at the county. And I want to say, as members of the county board, we serve a crucial role of oversight for all departments and all countywide elected officials. We owe it to the residents to represent their interests and ensure their tax dollars are being spent appropriately. As a CPA, I can say I was specifically elected to watch over the taxpayer dollars. Chair Conroy said in her budget address, requests from departments and elected officials were $34 million higher than anticipated revenues for the coming year. Every department and every elected official got cut from their initial request. The fact is, when the recorder presented her budget to this committee in July, she presented a budget that was 54% higher than what the board approved. Yes, it is. The numbers do not lie. I brought this to the attention of the board at that time. I sent an email out and I said this was unacceptable. Chair Conroy's proposed budget increases the recorder's general fund by 3.04% over fiscal year 25. The recorder's general fund is higher than it's been in the last 5 years. The recorder may have gotten exactly what she wanted, but she may not have gotten exactly what she wanted this year, but she's still getting an increase that is more than sufficient to operate their office. The recorder's budget request included moving 6 employees from the special revenue funds, doc storage, to the general fund. The state's attorney's office has opined that those employees can continue to be funded from doc storage and GIS. When combining the salaries in the recorder's general revenue and special revenue funds, her salary line is still 1.3% higher than the recorder's budget request. Chair Conroy's proposed budget eliminated some lines that are not statutorily required for the recorder's office, including uniforms and polos for staff members and food and beverages for outreach events. These items are not essential and not statutorily required. The proposed budget also adjusts lines based on historical actual spending over the last 3 years. For example, the recorder requested $10,000 for overtime expenses. Yet in the last 3 years, the most that's ever been spent out of that line is $70. The recorder requested $25,000 for operating supplies, when the recorder's office has never spent more than $10,000 in a year. And in the recorder's travel budget, she asked for $15,000, when the most spent in the last 3 years is $1,200. The chair's proposal follows accepted budgeting practices and is holding the line on expenses. We want our budgets to reflect actual expenses. What we do now sets the table for future budgets. By limiting our expenses today, we set ourselves up for success tomorrow and assure the taxpayers that we are fiscally responsible.
Oh, can I please?
We're not gonna, can I get some more comments and then you can answer at the
Yes.
end? Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Okay, we've got Member Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Recorder Chaplin, for being here. I have a few questions. It's interesting, the thought process of just working within the budget, the revenue stream that you bring in, but do you pay rent here? Does your office pay rent?
No, I don't think any office pay rent.
Okay, so if you really were to operate within your budget, you might have to
We could
move somewhere, get a building and
we
pay for
might,
that.
we might,
Okay,
yeah.
could you afford to pay for that?
I don't know. I'd have to see what the market rate is. Right.
Okay, and then does your office negotiate IT contracts like for Microsoft?
Actually, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. We do work very closely with IT, and we are in the middle of putting an RFP out, and that's why you'll see in our special funds we have some high costs. Our recording platform was never bid out originally. So we are going out for bid on that. Valerie and Brian have been helping us. Our bid should hopefully go out next week, but we have been working very closely, and we do that type of thing. And we are trying to be very responsible with the tax dollars. And that's why we are going out for bid for a new recording platform to make sure that we have the best platform for the money that we can get for the county. So we are working with IT and on that type of thing.
But you don't negotiate like your Microsoft, your Excel.
No, the county does that for us, and we would probably have to, we could probably do that with my staff too, but Richard and Anthony have always been so kind to help us with anything that we need.
Yeah, no, it's because it's a countywide effort.
That's right. That's
and we're
right.
Consolidating resources.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
you do benefit from county.
Absolutely, and we are happy to help the county. I just want to, what we're trying to do, I know you mentioned that the chair budget, and I appreciate that she did that off the last 3 years or 4 years, but you guys have to understand the recorder's office for the last 4 years was mismanaged. I hate to say it, but there was no educational opportunities for the employees. They couldn't buy office supplies. They were cutting scrap paper, as you saw in our budget presentation, and stapling it together. And what we're trying to do, because past recorders have put employees in the special funds, doesn't make it right. We're trying to right a lot of these things that were wrong in the office. You guys know we have been really trying to make this office a pride of DuPage County. We've been we're applying for a grant. We got over 36 letters of support throughout the community for a grant that we're applying for. First time the recorder's office has ever done this. We have a lot of plans. We're not trying to be obstructionist. I'm here today to ask you, I can't manage my budget with no printing costs. So we do have $15,000 in our dock storage for printing, and somebody might say that, but what that $15,000 is for dock storage is for the ordinance you guys did about a month ago that now allows the bulk storage fees to go to the county board. We have to pay for that service. So we pay 3 cents for every page that Property Insight purchases from our vendor for bulk sales. That in turn is bringing revenue to the general fund. Look I gave you guys money to the general fund. That resolution you just did, we're going to be giving between $60,000 and $250,000 a year additional in revenue to the general fund, because that was something my office identified, that those dollars were going to our office rather than to the general fund. So I'm not here, like I said, I want to go through this budget. I need money for printing. Yes, and I'd be happy. We can zero out the apparel, and we can work a little bit on travel, but that's why I'm here. I want to go with this committee through this budget and get a budget that I can run my office, because I have to print. And Member Cahill and Member Garcia were in my office, and I showed them some of the things that we're printing that are very important that I need to be able to send out. So that's what I'm asking for. And the 54% increase, where that comes from, is we're taking those employees that are in dock storage and putting them back in the general fund where they belong. Because I'll ask you, go through the budget and look if any other department has that many employees in their special fees. And you know what the answer is going to be? No, they don't. So that's why I'm here. But
Okay, so thank you for that.
Yes.
You knew the budget before you ran for office, and as the former finance chair, you are intimately
Yes.
aware of that. So for you to come back here after knowing what you know about the recorder's office, deciding to run for office, number one, and accusing the former recorder of mismanagement, you know, that's a little, you know, that could be slanderous. So you knew what the budget was, and now you're coming back here and saying, I just got elected, I can't do the job without
I can do the job.
54% of an increase.
The 50, let's be clear, you guys, you're manipulating that. The 54% increase is taking those employees out of the special funds and putting them back into the dock
Those
storage fund.
employees are doing work that is vital to the recorder's office.
They are doing work that is
You cannot
vital.
run your office without those people.
No, I cannot. No, I
Okay, I'm
cannot.
gonna-
And that's why I need
We're
them.
gonna calm down a little here and we're just gonna make sure we're answering. So let's not make it a back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to hear the comments from the board. That's what I'm asking. So maybe we just do, instead of just asking questions, we just do comments right now and we'll have her answer at the very end if you don't
Oh,
mind.
okay, so these are just the comments and not questions then?
Yes,
Okay, so
if you don't mind.
those were my comments though, that, you know, when you run for office and you know what the budget is, you know, and your employees, they took these jobs knowing their salaries. So when these salaries jump so high in such a short amount of time, that is not the appropriate process about increasing salaries. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Zay was next. And then member-
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning, members.
You know what? I hate to say it when you ring the bell. You know, you're my fourth recorder, and I've never had a recorder come here and say, these are my recording fees. They're not your recording fees. They're the county of DuPage's fees. You do a service that is our money. The sales tax that comes into the county of DuPage is not the county board's fees. It's the county of DuPage's fees. So you standing there saying you're entitled to this because you bring the money in is the first time I've ever heard this in my 26 years on the board. That's ridiculous. It's not your money. You run the office. And we can talk about the little stuff. The main stuff that you're asking for, you want a $451,000 increase in your salaries. I mean, that is a lot. And by the way, you have all the statutes up there. And I'll read one for you. 5 LCS 5/3 5005-4, compensation of deputies and employees. Compensation of deputies and employees shall be fixed by the recorder and subject to budgetary limitations established by the county board. So that's how we work this out. That is a budgetary constraint. And I know you've been here and talking about how your employees have been underpaid and all this other stuff, but you know, I get it. And you always want your employees to get the most money, but your employees, and again, nothing against any other board members. A lot of you don't work in the private sector, and some of these increases don't happen in the private sector. And I think this board that you were part of since 2020, we have given, including this year's 3%, 21% raises in the last 5 years, which is unheard of. So I think we've done our part of trying to make up for anybody who's been underfunded or underpaid or anything else. But again, we talk about budgetary constraints. You know, I was the vice chair of finance under Paul Fichtner for years. And the 34 million that we're over, that's every year. It's every year I've been here. And it's probably been more. And we sit there and we go through this. And that's the role of this county board. And you know that. Yeah. We have to prioritize and we have to go to our core responsibilities of what the county has to do. And a lot of your stuff, I mean, you know, I know that office. My mom used to work at the office.
I know she did. We have some
So,
employees
I
that know
mean,
your mom.
that office has been remodeled more than I can tell you, more than stormwater, building and zoning and public works, who hasn't been remodeled in probably 2 decades. I mean, these are nice things, but I think your office will continue without, after, I think Recorder Buckholz, right before he left office, had the whole whole office remodeled. But again, how do you come up with this huge salary increase for your employees? It's so much above. You've done no surveys. You've done nothing that compares your office to other people.
So these salaries that were just increased were these people up here. And what we did was we reorganized. So I changed, some went to managers, assistant managers, some, Justin went from a financial analyst two to a financialist one. I have a chief, I made one a deputy chief. So this was a reorganization, and there, I think that totaled $69,000 in raises, and my employees are still not making, they're making okay, and they are working for the money they're making, but my administrative assistant is still $10,000 lower than what the administrative assistants make in the county.
And how long has she been your administrative assistant?
Which she's been my administrative assistant 6 months, 7 months.
6 months. Okay, so we've had people, we've had administrative assistants that have worked here for decades.
But she has worked at the
But-
county as well prior.
But
so-
again, this is where we get into, there is structure, this is how we do things, this is how, just
Right.
because one secretary of transportation who's been here 15, 20 years makes X amount, doesn't mean everyone in every department needs to make that X amount. You work here, your good deeds go, that's how you get seniority, that's how you work. But
And again-
again, when you raise people's salaries, you just don't raise their salaries. You raise everything else. You raise IMRF, you raise all the other benefits that we have to come up with. So it's just not your salaries. It has a cascading effect, and not only for this year, but for next year and all the years to come. And you know that.
Well,
Okay, we're gonna move on to member you, for comments. I don't want this to go back. I'll be back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a similar, line of questioning. I really do appreciate you guys being here, to present, and I do appreciate all the work that you've done in the recorder's office, making the changes that you've had, the improvements that you've had, and you have improved your employees' lives by increasing salaries thus far. But I do have more of a generic question of, are there other instances of offices or departments where their revenue is being moved or used for other offices or departments? I just want to kind of make a more generic question maybe to the finance department. I just want to know how, I understand that you're saying that your office is self-sustaining, but clearly in the history of county and how we handle our budgets, we're going to be taking revenues from one office and potentially using it for other purposes. Can anybody answer this question for me?
I think it'd be better coming from Jeff or mine.
So I think the best example I can give you is sales. 56 of our general fund budget is in sales tax, but that sales tax is budgeted specifically out of the county chair's office. And then basically goes into the lump of the general fund. All of our revenues go into the general fund. And then we account for all of our expenses in the department. I mean, obviously the county board office can't keep $150 million in sales tax. We have to give that to the sheriff and other departments that just don't generate other revenue. So really, it is a sharing method of revenue generation to fund all of our services across the county.
Thank you. And is there any statutory requirement that the money that we receive from the county recorder's office must be used in the county recorder's office?
Not that I'm aware of, but I have not looked in great detail.
Are there other
on that.
offices?
I'd have to defer to our state.
Are there other offices or departments where the money that any revenue that comes in that office or in that department has to be used for that office?
Well, as Nick said, there's other departments such as the circuit court clerk's office. They have specific revenues. That again, that goes into the general fund as part of the general fund revenue pool.
Mhm. Yeah. So yes, so really, I just want to again kind of establish this foundation or baseline of what has the county board done? How has it historically been handled with regard to revenues from one office to another? And so I think it's very clear, and more than one county board member has already mentioned that yes, we work on the county board as a whole, that we're trying to holistically make sure that we have a balanced budget. I just want to, the finance department did provide some of these numbers. For fiscal year 2021, the actual budget was $1,210,000. That was before the prior recorder came on. So that was 2021 actuals. And then, starting in 2022, 2023, the budget did go down to 970,000, 929,000. And then for fiscal year 2025, the adopted budget was 1,203,000. And then the current projected 2025 projected is 1,194,854,000. So still, whatever we have for the chair, the proposed is now 1,231,355. But the current recorder's department request is $1,851,853. That is a extremely, extremely large increase. If you do run the numbers, that is a 53% increase from 2025. So I would like to give you more money, Liz, but it's a lot.
Well, and thank you. And I really do appreciate this conversation. And again, the increase is coming from moving those employees out. Like I said, I would really like to work with this committee. And I believe our recording, there was a study done on our dock storage fee, and it had $400,000 in salaries in there. If we can work with the county, I would like I said, I want to sit with this committee and find ways where we can make this budget work. I really think it's important to start transitioning employees out of those special funds and putting them back into the general fund. Because if you guys look at the books downstairs that are dilapidated and falling apart that haven't been taken care of, we need to preserve, restore those and get those books digitized. That's going to cost money from our fees. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be done in our 2027 budget. We're going to come up here with a capital improvement plan for you that we have ideas to use that money with. They use that money, that dock storage money, for employee salaries to start using the money, bringing that reserve level down. But that's not really the right intent of that. They maybe didn't know what that money should have been used for, but there's a lot of improvements that need to be done in that record. And I'm not talking remodeling, I'm talking with books and digitization and things like that, that we really need to get done. So it's really, when you look at it, it's like I said, it looks like a lot, but it's just transferring those employees out of the special funds into the into the recorder B fund. So
okay, I think
so,
Jeff has a comment to make on that real quickly.
Let me address that. Back in 2020, specifically to the dock storage fund, there was a study that was done. And that helped to develop the fee. And within that study, they took out the recorder at that time, used the county's budget, which included all of the employees that were budgeted out of the dock storage fund, and used that to set the fees for dock storage. So it's not as easy as taking the employees out and transferring them. The fees for the dock storage fund are set because there's a specific number of employees that were used during that time, during the last study, to fund those positions.
And can I ask, how much is in the dock storage? I think is it 3 million?
There's over $3 million.
Can I just have one last comment?
We're going to move to Member Galassi, and I'll come back to you.
Thank you. So a few points I'd like to make. When you first came to present your budget, there was a lot of conversation about whether or not the employees should be moved out. And I know that we had asked for the state's attorney's advisement on where those employees should be. And my understanding is it was advised that they should stay within the dock storage.
That's correct, for one of the reasons that Jeff
Right,
mentioned.
right. So I was, yes, thank you. Thank you for responding. And that is what I was going to say, is that my understanding is that the fees within the dock storage fees are based on the amount of employees that are within that department, correct? Yes. So that is I mean, we had that back and forth when you came to give the budget presentation. And my understanding is that we need to keep those employees within that fund because that's how we determine those fees. So that's my first point. My second point is like it's already been mentioned, you were the finance chair when we did approve the recorder's budget last year. So I just want to make that point very clear. Thirdly, I just want to go back to the salaries because there's a lot of conversation about that. Your requested salary amount is 1,612,000. And when you look at what the chair's proposed budget is, plus what's within the special revenue fund, that amount actually is higher than what you're requesting. That amount is actually 1,634,000. So the salary number that you're requesting is going to be sufficient based on what the chair's budget is recommending. And as it pertains to salaries, I just want to make a few other comments. When you were first elected in January 25, you came before the board and explained that you wanted to provide raises to your employees of $151,000. That was to cover raises for 17 employees. That was a 30% increase to your salary line. You gave a very good explanation. You said you work with staff, you work with Nick, you work with Jeff, you work with human resources, you did your due diligence, and the board approved those raises. And I appreciated that due diligence that you did. However, September 25, you submitted raises that totaled another $68,000 for 6 employees, 5 of whom had just received raises 8 months earlier. This is where I have a problem. You came to us with your due diligence and you asked for raises and we approved those. But to come back 8 months later and request raises for 5 of those same employees without coming to the board, without showing any financial analysis, that is where I have an issue. Finally, projecting ahead December 25, after calculating the cost of living adjustment, salaries in the recorder's office will have increased 44% in just 2 years. To one of my members' comments, those things don't happen in the private sector. And being an elected official, one of my platform issues was fiscal responsibility. And to me, this is getting out of control. The salary increases, the requests are getting out of control. In 4 years, employees in the recorder's office has seen an average salary increase of 58%. There is no private sector organization that would even come close to that. So when your approved budget, when you were the finance chair, was 1.2 million, and now you're asking for 1.8 million, when we're dealing with an overage of 34 million and all the requests from all the different offices, it's not a sustainable model. So those are my opinions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, remember you had another question?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Actually, a couple of my comments were covered by Member Glossy, but I just want to go back to what Recorder Chaplain had mentioned earlier about, the cost of digitization and the books that you guys are trying to restore and all that other stuff. But also, you have other things in your budget that are really high budgetary requests. Travel, you're asking for $15,000 for travel, when in the past, the maximum amount that was spent for travel was like around $1,200 for like the last 3 years. And I know that that Chair Conroy's budget proposal does increase yours to $3,000, but to say that you need $15,000 for travel, and I understand that people travel more, there are more conferences that are happening, you want to train, instruction and schooling, for instance, you're requesting $7,500 there. But I mean, even in technology, even in the IT department, I don't think, quote me if I'm wrong, Anthony, I don't know that we have $15,000 just for travel and for training. And we need people in cybersecurity and all kinds of training needed for the IT department. And you're requesting far more than even they're requesting. So all that to say, there are more requests than just the digitization, than just, the book restoring that you're asking for here. And I think we talked about multiple times on the board about how we don't want to pad the budgets. We want it to be based on the actuals from the year before and the year before and the year before. So again, my concern is that there's a lot more here that you're requesting than really you should be requesting. Even in the furniture, the small value equipment, you're requesting $40,000 for furniture and that kind of thing. And in this particular time where we are just trying to be extra responsible, extra prudent, I am concerned about that request as well.
Well, you guys just approved, I think, over $50,000 for chairs for the sheriff's department. Come down and look at my chairs. The arms are breaking. They had money in the budget last year for furniture. It was taken out. We put it back in. We do need furniture. Also, regarding the travel and the instruction, the previous recorder pulled out of PRIA, which is the Property Records Industry Association. That is the standard of which recorders join. That would be like maybe Stormwater pulling out of American Water Works or finance pulling out of the Government Financial Officers Association, right? They had no, we were not even recording at industry standards. My chief deputy came in and recognized that. There's recording things you have to do in order to record a document and to make it searchable. We were not recording at those standards because they didn't know the standards because they had pulled out of PRIA, and we lost a lot. The last administration lost a lot of people with a lot of experience in that office, and now we're retraining. So a lot of my team, that travel's not for me, that's for them to go and learn so that we can have a recorder's office that is recording up to industry standards, that we're that we're doing things the right way. So what I'm doing here is I am trying to right the ship in the right direction. I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I really do hope that we have an opportunity to sit down, go through this budget line by line. We can find some cuts and try to have a budget that works well for the county and works well for our office.
Member Desart has her hand up.
Yes, thank you so much. Let me take that down right there. Hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to have some notes or make some notes on a couple of things that I've heard. I've heard that former recorder Buckholz redirected the office, and I'm not sure what that has to do with the current recorder, so I'm not sure why that was brought up. A t-shirt fund is in the budget, and that was pointed out as kind of a negative thing. But I'll remind you, let's not be hypocrites about this, because Stormwater, Animal Services, the Sheriff's Office, all of these other departments have t-shirts with their logos on too. So I'm not sure why we're hitting on the recorder for having a t-shirt fund. Raises. Remember, board, that within the last 2 or 3 years, we have given equity raises to just about every department, sheriff's deputies, state's attorneys, animal services, pretty much across the board. So I did want to point that out. Somebody mentioned when you were elected, you knew the budget. And that's not really true. You knew the average budget, you knew what was happening, but that target keeps moving every year. So I don't blame you for not knowing what 2026's budget will be. Silly to me that rent was an option. Are you paying rent? Recorder, are you paying rent? Of course you're not paying rent. Neither is the clerk, neither is the sheriff, neither is the treasurer. Our electeds don't pay rent in DuPage County. So I'm not sure why we're being so critical of this recorder. I agree that the recorder's fees are DuPage County's fees, and the overages should go back to DuPage County. But all this recorder is asking for, cutting out all of this silly stuff, all of this recorder is asking for is a meeting with the finance committee, Paula and Cindy, to go through line item and to come up with a reasonable budget. Those are my notes. Thank you.
First of all, I have a couple of questions that I'm going to continue on the board. I know when we did talk before, I did ask for market analysis for these raises, and you were going to get them to me. So I just want to make that clear that we did ask for those that are asking that, and that was not supplied to us. So hopefully that's still coming. And then also the furniture that we're going to be buying in bulk with our facilities. So you are going to get the chairs. So the big bad chairs, you're not going to have those for a while. So I wanted to make sure that that's clear. We do have an answer for you on that, but at a lower price. So that's on that. So going on to Vice Chair Cahill, I believe.
Some of those were the same comments I was going to make. The furniture is going to be provided by our, you're going to get the furniture.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We already have that in facilities. And just a few other items. I want to let you know that we have met We have met with the chair, we have met with the finance team. This is the second time you have come forth, which is great. We're happy you're here. However, this is unusual. We don't do this typically. We have one presentation, then there's meetings, and then the chair comes up with the budget. Each item has been line by line looked at very carefully compared to prior actuals to come up with the numbers. You know, Member Galassi went over in great detail the salaries. We know as an elected official, you have every right to increase your salaries. We understand that. And your salaries can go forth in 2026 and can be paid in 2026. However, you still have to cut other areas because you cannot raise the salaries and have everything in your budget. For instance, I just want to go over a few other items that the recorder asked for. For instance, you know, copier usage, the recorder wanted 2,000. The chair was reasonable and gave 1,000 for that because in previous years, the cost was $287. In let's say another thing like dues and memberships. You requested 3,500. For the past years, it's only been 1,200. So the chair gave you 2,000. So everything I can see here that there was a compromise already on all of these lines. So I think you asked for also somewhere you asked for cleaning and maintenance, $2,000. $168 was spent in years past. So we gave you 500. So I want to say we have had meetings. We have gone through this with a fine tooth comb, and this is the chair's budget. And this is what I support the chair in her budget.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Cahill.
Member Oza?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yet again, woke up to a story in the Daily Herald. DuPage County Clerk goes to court to get 2 election vendors paid. What I want to do right now, all of the comments that I would like to have made have been made already. First of all, I want to thank Finance Chair Deacon Garcia and Vice Chair Cronin for the work, or Cahill for the work, sorry about that, for the work that you've done. I believe that this has been as open a process as possible. I want to thank the recorder for coming before us today to plead your case. But this is how the system is supposed to work, a system of checks and balances. And we haven't seen the clerk here now in years. And processes are not, proper procedures are not being followed, et cetera. And on the face of it, I want to thank you because what we have here is a system of checks and balances. This is the chair's budget. We approve it. The county board approves it. And all of the other elected officials, that's how this works. And I want to thank you, whether it goes your way or not, and however the board decides to vote, I want to thank all of you for following this process. Thank you.
Member Arkoff?
You had made a comment about comparables that you were looking for.
Yeah, market analysis for these salaries that was just given the salary increases. So we got them for the January increases, but we did not get them for the ones that were just given.
Is that market analysis between governmental units or is it being compared to the private sector?
Usually, I believe the first ones were given to government sector, I believe. Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've been around long enough to know that who's ever on the bottom gets to the top, and it's just a circular thing where everybody uses the top guy to justify what they want. I appreciate the fact that everyone's having this conversation, but I think we need to remember what happened last year when we passed the budget. The county clerk then came out with about $400,000 worth of bonuses that they paid because there was a extra money in there that was then used to compensate her employees. And I'm almost of the opinion that we should give every elected official about 80% of what they want, so that never happens again to this board. Because I think every time that there are raises like that or bonuses like that, they need to come through us and not through the elected official, because it's just been misused in the past. So I know we're trying our best to hold the line. Hopefully that's not going to happen again. I did mention it to the chair that, I don't want to find out that some elected officials got $300,000 or $400,000 that they didn't spend because they didn't hire 3 or 4 people, and then they give all that money out to the existing employees. And that's, so, and I also think it should be noted that I think government employees do have certain benefits. It's maybe not always reflected in the salary, but there's a certain amount of job security because you always need government. There's some benefits. I think we've tried really hard regarding insurance to provide good insurance. And there's a holiday schedule, and we just passed what, a 12-month or 12-week maternity leave, where if you remember, the average in the business world is 8 weeks. So I think we've bent over backwards to try and help people, and I really want to see any future salary increases that come through us and not just go with staff.
Okay, thank you, Member Eckhoff. Member Covert?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you, Recorder Chaplin, for coming in and for your presentation the second time. And I was listening to Member Cahill. I was listening to everybody's comments and your reasoning for all the expenses. And in my head, I was thinking of, what are the reasonable alternatives, what we can do. For the 15,000 conference educational, maybe we can make it virtual. Maybe we could send 1 or 2 people, just ideas like that. But I don't want to repeat what everybody else said, but we are a fiscal board and everybody has to be funded, and another department could come in and ask for the same thing. And Chair Conroy's job is to make sure that we are fiscally responsible. And she did go through, all the items line by line, and she did make those compromises. I trust her judgment, and she's excellent at her job. And I stand by our chair's decision on this. This is our budget, and this is what we have to work with. And maybe we could look for alternatives for some of the line items and, find out a reasonable solution for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Culver.
Member Glossy?
I just have one quick question for Chris. During the process, my understanding is that you were involved when Recorder Chapman was first elected and came to the board for raises January 25. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you involved when she submitted raises for the 6 employees in September?
No.
Did any market analysis ask for any involvement at all?
No, we did not have any engagement in that.
Okay. And is there a policy that you should be, what is the typical procedure when?
Well, we have a job evaluation. We have policy on equities within the county board policies that we have. So typically, all county board and most elected officials, we do engagement. We talk about market studies, internal equities. Sometimes with especially elected officials, they have specific job classifications that are unique to their office. So, we look at that. We look at usually the comparables. Typically, it's a government, collared counties is a typical group we would look at to see what other recorder offices in this case would be looking at. And then sometimes they have same job classifications as other county departments. And then we would look also at internal. We don't want to create internal inequities that could cause a trickle effect financially.
Sure. Okay. So outside of the clerk's office, because we all know we've had issues there, is this an anomaly that an elected official would give raises without coming to you?
I'd say it's not typical.
It's not typical that raises would be given without involving your department.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Typically they reach out to us, they reach out to finance too. There's usually an engagement process of some sort that occurs.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I just want to make one final statement that obviously as a board, we're dealing with lawsuits because of one of the elected officials' offices. And part of the frustration has been them not interacting with human resources when they're giving raises. And so I, as a board member, don't want to be in a situation where now a second elected official's office is doing, we're seeing a similar pattern to raises being given without human resources being involved. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to speak to that. I sent in raises for my 6 employees because they were promotions or they moved from one spot to another. We submitted those on August 15th for an effective date of the first pay period in September. On September 11th, my deputy of finance checked if those increases had gone through. They had not gone through, so they were not going to be on that first payroll in September. So we reached out to HR. They told us it was under financial review. That was on September 16th. That same day, Chair Garcia and Vice Chair Cahill came down and asked me if I could hold off on those raises. I said, well, I already authorized them and I already told my employees, and I have no choice to hold off on them because finance withheld them themselves. So those raises did not go through. Now I know that in July, another elected official put raises through that were not put through either. Had we known, or had I been told, hold off on raises because of the 2026 budget, look at guys, I've been following every single thing you have asked me to do. I didn't know, so we don't know what we don't know. But anyways, after my visit with the chair and vice chair, I sent an email out asking, why these raises weren't put through and what the legal basis was for withholding those raises. There was no legal basis to withhold my raises. So they had to put those raises through. I had the money in my budget. I didn't realize that when you're doing a promotion that you had to do a cost analysis. To me, it's a promotion. You shouldn't have to do a cost analysis. You're moving from one job to another. What I did in January was I gave unilateral raises. And that's why I felt it was important to do that study. But my employees that were expecting those raises on September 1st didn't get them until September 15th. And you guys, and as a board, we have been working very hard to help our employees give those raises, because you know what? Sometimes it's a little short-sighted to say we're not going to give raises and then you have people leave. I mean, we've been able to retain our staff. I had to get rid of one person, but we've been able to retain that staff, and it cost a lot of money to have to retrain. So if you can throw a little bit of money here to keep somebody here and to acknowledge their good work, sometimes that saves money in the long run. And you know me, I am as fiscally conservative as any of you. And you know I have always been pro-employee, and that I will never apologize. And you all can try to criticize and shame me for those raises, but I will never apologize for giving those small increases to my people that still make on average less than most county departments.
Okay, quick comment on that. No one's going to be shaming you for that at all. We all know that you're pro-employee. In terms of your employees, I am going to stick up for my finance staff though. They actually held back because we were telling them that the budget was going to be tight. And we did have a meeting with you and asked you if you could hold off because we knew that this would be an issue. You would not have money for other things that you might want to do. So that's why we had that discussion with you, number one. Number two, I am uniquely qualified to talk about government salaries. I worked for a government agency for 21 years. The salaries that I'm seeing coming out of your office, thank you, Jim, are very high compared. I worked for 21 years and I left at a salary much lower than your employees are making right now. I'm grateful that you're actually paying them a good salary. I think they should all be grateful too, but that means that something else has to go. That's how I feel. If you're fiscally responsible, if you've chosen that path and you want to support your employees, fantastic. But it was not the finances staff issue. It was us telling them that there was going to be an issue. Hold off. And they did get their retroactive pay. So they were not hurt in any way by holding off. So they did get that. So just so you're aware. So just wanted to make sure. And I think, who was next? Jim Zay? Were you next, Member Zay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, Liz, if you don't get this in your budget, will your office stop operating?
If I don't get what? I'm sorry, members.
If you don't get these numbers in your budget, will your office stop?
Well, I do need money for printing. So, because it's very important that I be able to print things. I mean, I don't think any office can function without printing. So I do need some money for printing. But like I said, I'm willing to sit down, go through line by line. We've identified lines where we can pull back and maybe lines that we need to increase a little bit. But like I said, I'm not here to obstruct. I'm here to try to work with you guys. So at least I can get some printing costs in my budget. I mean, I have to be able to print. You guys saw what I'm printing and I would love to come in executive session and show you guys what we're printing because I
But
can't.
again, your budget's by priority, right? So if printing's that big, it should be a priority. But after the budget's passed, there's nothing precluding you coming in January or February saying, guys, I've looked, I've tried to cut X, Y, and Z, and I really need this money. I mean, I don't think a board's ever turned anybody down when it's been a necessity at that point. So this isn't the end of the world if you don't get your budget.
I mean, just I'm most concerned about the printing costs, but
Well, and my concern too, and we all want to give everybody raises, but do you understand when you give people raises in September? When do we traditionally give raises here at the county? December 1st. So now they're only not getting the raise in September. They get the raise. Now they're getting a 3% or a 3.5% on top of the raise they just got. So now a $10,000 raise is now really a $12,700 raise because that's what happens. But then we bear that cost then again through IMRF, through workers' comp, through everything else. That's what we do. So you understand why we do it.
so should I have not given my raises to employees that are now managers, moved up in finance? Should I not have given them a salary compensation that is measurable to the job that they're in? You guys, I sent you an email. Nobody questioned. I said I was sending raises, and I showed you guys that I was making these changes within my department. It was reorganization. Nobody called me. Nobody asked me a question. Now we're here, but these are the people that these raises affect. They all have taken on. Jackie went from a recorder to finance. Justin went from financial analyst 2 to 1, 1 to 2. Liz was a recorder. She's now a manager. Stacy is now an assistant manager. Christiane got her 6-month review. You're telling me I cannot give people that I promoted increases? These were not unilateral raises.
But then you have to take it out of your budget.
It is coming out of my budget. I have the money in my budget.
Giving you your budget this time and you're wanting more money from them.
I'm just wanting the employees out of this dock storage into the general fund. And if we can start moving maybe 1 or 2 a year, I think that would be great.
Okay, moving on, we're gonna go to member Tornatori. And then
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Recorder.
Morning, member Tornatori.
First, thank you for your
okay,
transparency.
I'm sorry, member Tornatori. Can I interrupt for a
Yes, of
second?
course.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to clarify something about printing costs. Those costs have historically been in the dock storage fund. So that's where we transfer them back to. So that's based on historical numbers.
So they have the printing, they have funds for the printing that.
Oh, and my dock storage.
15, the money.
Okay,
That
thank you.
15,000? But that's for that 15,000 is for the 3 cents that we have to pay for the bulk sales. Do I have another line? So that money in dock storage pays for the service for our bulk sales printing, which then creates that revenue that's going to the general fund. So that's not for regular printing. That's not for regular printing. That's strictly for the bulk sales. So that's why, that's where that come from. So that's why I wish
Okay,
somebody would have talked to us
member
before doing.
Tornatori now, if I
Yes.
can. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for the job you're doing. You're here, you're fighting for your office, you're fighting for your employee salaries. If I were in issues, I'd be doing the same. There's 2 things that I have an issue with. The first is what you're, I think, essentially asking, and what you would like to do is move the salaries from dock storage to the general fund, which may be a great idea, except our state's attorney has said it's not. So for me, they're there for a reason, to give us advice. I don't necessarily want to not follow that advice. I think that would be in contravention of what we're supposed to do. So that's issue number 1. The other issue is that you've a couple times said you've given us money with the fees that you've generated. I think you have that backwards. I think what you generate, like any other official, goes to the county And then that gets dispersed to the appropriate people within the budget. Because if we were to follow that logic about you using what you bring in to pay your expenses, then the clerk of the circuit court, their employees are grossly underpaid because they generate tens of millions of dollars. The state's attorney's office would be underpaid because they have fines that they generate. Goodness knows the treasurer's office is horrendously underpaid because they bring in hundreds of millions of dollars. So I don't know that that's a logical way of trying to get to where you want to go. As far as you having a meeting with the appropriate people, I would never stand in the way of people having a meeting. I think that's the way you get things done. So if that's appropriate, and the finance chair and the chair of the county board and anybody else wants to have a meeting and it's within the constraints of what we're going to do, I'm all for it. But the two things I just raised are what give me some cause for concern.
Thank you, Member Torrentori. And I appreciate that. But we do have the specific recording fee that does go to fund our office too. I mean, it doesn't say the general fund fee.
Not to cut you off,
Thank
but we have a couple other members and we're gonna run out of time and we have executive sessions. So I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
I'm
no,
not
that's
trying to be
fine.
rude.
No.
We have Member Ozog and Member Honan.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to, it's ingenuous to not remember in 2020, 2021, when we were getting money from the CARES Act, from ARPA, we knew that the deadline for, I hate to use the word Armageddon, but it might be appropriate, was going to come in 2026. And so all of those funds are now out of our purview, but we're also looking at a federal government, and we depend on the federal government for a good share of our funding that has been inoperative for 2 weeks. We have no idea what's going on at the federal level. So we really do need to think about the word Armageddon. And so going forward, $34 million in excess requests, that's not just your office, that's across the board. And we have to be thinking that the worst is going to come and how can we best serve our constituents? Because we're not talking about extras and frills, we're talking about food and shelter, what's going to be going on here in the next year or year and a half. So I will be supporting the chair's budget as it was presented to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ozog. And the final one is Member Honan.
Thank you, Chair Garcia, and thank you for coming and giving your comments. And I don't think anyone will ever ding you for fighting for your staff. I don't want to be too long for the courtesy of being too redundant, because everyone has kind of said what I was going to say. But I just kind of want to say that, if the goal here is to sit down and work with Chair Garcia and Vice Chair Cahill and to go line by line, I think that if you were to average out the over asks of all the other line items like travel, for dues and subscriptions and things like that, I think that you could substantially get that number down. And it could overall, if a priority is printing, a priority is, for example, your staff increases, I think that you can't, in my opinion, you can't have both. I think you can work with the board and all of us to come up with a budget that will not inherently break the balanced budget that the chair has presented, because at the end of the day, like Member Ozog said, we have no idea what's going to happen. Community services are being threatened all over the country, and especially in DuPage County. And I really do think that there is so much room to make a very general ask that is not beyond our means, that is substantial, that is good enough for your office to keep running, and also that we can operate as we are now, because we do not have ARPA fund, the amount of ARPA funds we do not have the wiggle room anymore that we were guaranteed before. And so I think that if that is a willing ask to just average out all the over asks of in each line item, that could bring down that number and it could be more reasonable. But again, I will stand by and support our budget that we talked about, that the chair is putting forth, because there are really good programs that that we need to fund to, whether it's food insecurity, affordable housing, all the things that we do collectively. I do stand by that. And but again, I appreciate you being here and standing up for your staff and advocating for your office. But I do think there needs to be that type of concession. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your attention and the work that you guys do, because I know, because I did it. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much for being here. We really, truly do appreciate it. The reason we didn't have a meeting with you personally is because we thought it should be the finance committee, because once the chair presents their committee, it is the finance committee that now kind of has to have that. So I wanted to make sure everybody heard what you were asking. So thank you so much for being that, and all of these comments and your presentation will be put into consideration before a final vote is put into the budget. So thank you. Okay, moving on in our agenda. Is there any old business? Any new business? Okay, we have been told that we do have executive sessions, so I can get a motion to move into executive session. Motion by member Tornatori, second by member Yu. Roll call, please.
Member Cahill,
Aye.
member Childress, member Covert.
Aye.
Member Desart, member Eckhoff, member Evans, member Galassi, member Garcia.
Aye.
Member Heather, member Honig, member Krajewski, member LaPlante, member Martinez, member Ozag, member Schwarzy, member Tornatori, member Yu.
Aye.
Member Zay.
Okay, so let me know when everybody's off.
If you are on the Zoom meeting and not